Hello, everyone. My name is Nick Mautone. This is my SPTE 640 final presentation. I attended a couple of events last week at Lucas Oil Indianapolis Raceway Park here in the Indy metro area, and that is the venue I'm going to be covering for this project. So yeah, let's jump into it. So we got some fast facts about the track. So the track was opened in 1960. Early in the year 1958, a group of investors around the Indianapolis area put together their money and bought a plot of land in Brownsburg, Indiana, about 10 miles west of downtown Indy, and only about 2 or 3 miles away from Speedway, Indiana, which is the home of the famous Indianapolis Motor Speedway. They started construction on the track later in the year in 1958, and the track opened up a couple years later in October of 1960. Now, the track that NASCAR races on is a 0.686 mile asphalt track with 12-degree banking in the corners, about 3 to 4, a variable degree of banking, about 3 to 4 degrees on the front stretch and back stretch, which is pretty standard for NASCAR, where you see the differentiation in tracks is in the corners usually. On site as well is a 2.5 mile road course and a half-mile long drag strip. The drag strip is the most famous part of the complex. You get NHRA's main series goes there every year in late August, early September, around Labor Day for an event. And the road course is used for a lot of private track days, and car clubs will rent it out and whatnot. The oval track is an important part of the facility as well. And NASCAR went there a lot in the 60s, early 70s. Stopped going. They started going back in the 90s with the brand new at the time Craftsman Truck Series. And then they left again in the early 2000s, and then came back again for a couple races in the early 2010s, and then left again until 2021. And the Truck Series has been racing there ever since for the last 6 years consecutive. Attendance was pretty good. I'd say about 90% of the track seating was filled up. A lot of people were standing room only as well, and they have a huge hill in turn one that kind of goes over into turn two as well. People had blankets and folding chairs set up on, so the track does well attendance wise. What hurt it a little bit is the fact that the O'Reilly Series and the Cup Series, which are NASCAR's two biggest series, were just down the road at IMS the same weekend, so people who did not want to be overwhelmed and have their entire weekend be racing might have not come out. But the track did a really good job of promoting the races, and I saw billboards all around Indianapolis promoting it. I got email notifications all for a couple weeks leading up to it to buy tickets, things like that. So overall, it was a great event. I really enjoyed going. It was my first time at the track, my first time in Brownsburg, as I'm new to the Indianapolis area. But I did notice quite a few things the track did well, and some things they did not do well. And I'm not really sure if it's just due to the size of the track and the amount of people there or not, because compared to the other about 6 or so NASCAR tracks I've been to, and about 15 events total, a lot was not up to par with what I've seen at other facilities. But to be fair, those bigger facilities are utilized more and bring in more revenue, higher ticket prices, etc. So I'm going to talk about all of that in this video. So I attended 2 events. I attended the ARCA Menard Series LaUna 150 presented by Ideal Door Garage Doors. That race took place at 5 o'clock and ended around 7:15 or so. And then I also attended the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series race at T-Sport 200. I know the date on the logo says July 25th, 2025. I could not find this year's logo in a good format that was clear to put in this slideshow, but it was the exact same logo, exact same name of the race, exact same amount of laps. Everything was the exact same. That race started at 8, that ended around 10:15, and that was the second and final event of the day at the track. Gates opened at 1 o'clock. NASCAR events usually open up super early. Night races will open up 6 to 8 hours before the race starts. Day races may be more like 4 or 5, which was true in this case, but I did not get there at 1. I got there a little bit after 4 because I had to work because it was a Friday, so I wasn't able to see too much of setup. However, I was able to observe a lot of what happened pre-race, after setup was complete of the facility, but while the teams were getting the trucks set up and the crews were setting up on pit road. And then I obviously saw both races as well as the post-race festivities of the second race and the very beginning of Teardown. So, looking at the event setup and logistics, there's a lot of different factors and ancillary items and services that we can look at here: parking, the entrance, ticketing, the box office, security, concessions, bathrooms, and emergency services. Parking was very lackluster, to say the least. The track, the oval track on site at least, was only accessible by a 2-lane paved road, and it took a long time to park. Obviously, you got I would say upwards between 15 and 20,000 people on site. Um, it was tough when you probably are averaging, you know, two to three people per car. Some people came alone, like myself, who met people there I knew, but drove separately. And then other people might have had, 6 people in a big, Chevy Suburban or something. But it's going to average out to about 3, I would say. Parking was just in grass fields in the infield of the road course. The road course kind of goes around the outside of the property, and the oval track and the drag strip are in the middle. Parking was pretty close. I only had to walk about 10 minutes from my car to the entrance, the picture for the entrance is at the bottom. There was only one entrance for the entire track, and it was only 4 security lanes, and it took about 15 minutes to get into the track. So I got on site around 4:10 or so, and I did not get to my seat until between 4:45 and 4:50, just with having to walk from my car and then wait in line. It took forever. Honestly, was not acceptable, but I understand it's an oval track that's used for a handful of weekends a year. One weekend where it's major events like ARCA and the Truck Series coming in. So they're not going to go out of their way to build multiple other entrances that are never going to be utilized. You can kind of see the box office too on the side, on the bottom picture right there. It's a very regular building. The event actually sold out of tickets. All seating was general admission. And the track sold out of seating actually the day before on Thursday. So the box office wasn't too busy. People were picking up will call tickets. You had some groups come up that had like matching shirts on, and so forth. But the box office is very basic. It's just a small building with a bunch of windows in the front. I can't really say anything about the box office being special or not. I'm sure it serves the purpose that the track needs, and probably not much above that, but definitely not below. Security was something that was really lacking at the event. They had 4 people scanning tickets, and they had 2 bag lines, one on either side of that black tent that's in the bottom picture. And they had one person with a little stick digging through bags. And I'm sure lots of contraband got brought in. I mean, if you know NASCAR fans, they open carry a lot or concealed carry, and I'm not saying any guns got in, because they had metal detectors too, but I'm sure we saw knives got in. I'm sure things like that got in. Smaller weapons got in for sure. Concessions was something. Oh, and going back to security too, very little security once you got into the facility. Usually at NASCAR events, you'll have somebody assigned per section to stand kind of at the fence and kind of ease the flow of traffic and make sure people aren't standing up against the fence for too long or trying to climb the fence or start fights in their section. At Lucas Oil Indianapolis Raceway Park, there might have been somebody every 4 sections or so. It really wasn't too prevalent of a security presence there. I did not feel unsafe at any point. NASCAR fans are usually pretty good people. They can be rowdy, but they're not violent. So I didn't really feel unsafe. I did get stopped. So at a lot of NASCAR tracks, you can go to pit road and the infield without a pass. It's just open. Anybody can go. Some tracks it's not. I did get stopped by security because I tried to go into the infield, not knowing the rules of that specific track. So security was doing their job, at least, if it wasn't an open infield, and they stopped me. I'm sure they stopped others as well. So I guess kudos there, although I would have loved to have gone into the infield. And gotten some pictures of the infield of the track to include in this presentation. Concessions is another thing that they did not have permanent on site. You can see that a little bit in the left side of the top picture on this slide, but it kind of looks like carnival or like a county or a state fair set up in terms of concessions, and it was. You had like a popcorn guy set up. You had a couple food trucks selling like chicken fingers, burgers. You had a hot dog guy, and then you had like a really like a fair food, like a roasted nuts, fried butter on a stick type of concession deal, like actual carnival food that you'll never see anywhere else. But there was no permanent concession stand at the track built into like a concourse or a standalone building or anything. It was all third-party vendors, and I get it again because the track is only used, at least the oval portion, a couple of weekends a year. So why build a permanent concession stand? Wouldn't make any sense for the capital investment to only use it for a little bit instead of just letting different vendors from around Brownsburg and the Indy area come in and just collecting a small royalty from them. Bathrooms, that's the main reason why I included this picture on the top. There's one permanent little bathroom house for the entire track. I waited in line for about 20 minutes just to pee, and there were a dozen urinals in the one bathroom for, like I said, 20,000 people, and I would say 3/4 of the attendees were men there. So, not great in terms of the bathrooms. They did have some portable toilets set up as well, but those are pretty gross, and I wasn't stepping foot in those. It was worth the wait, but they definitely could increase the bathroom capacity. That would be helpful, but again, I understand why they don't, because why spend the capital investment for something to only get used a couple weekends a year? And then finally, emergency services really weren't many. They had the AMR safety crew that's on site at every NASCAR event stationed in the infield and around the track in case something happened on the track. They had one ambulance off to the side next to the only grandstand for any patrons that might have had something happen. They fell down a bunch of flights of stairs, they had a heart attack in the stand, something like that. And then they had the infield care center as well for the drivers, and they had some medical personnel stationed there and an ambulance outside of that as well. But that wasn't to be used for general public. That is for the drivers if there's a bad wreck, which it's tough to have a bad wreck at a track like this where the speeds are so low and they're rarely going over 110 miles an hour, but you never know. So